What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. On this episode, as we usually do every week, we're catching up with our good buddy Joe Gribowski, former Wisconsin Badger offensive lineman, owner of Cabin Coffee in Altoona. He's answering a couple listener questions, and I got a couple as well. So let's just jump right into it. Time to catch up with our good buddy, Mr. Joe Gribowski, owner of Cabin Coffee, former Badger offensive lineman. First of all, hi, Mom Gribowski, too, just in case she's listening this week. So.
My mom is definitely active on social media.
Yeah. More than you, would you say?
Yeah, I don't. She's much more active than I am on social media.
I think she might be one of our number one listeners. So
there you go. Now you have a fan for life.
How's everything going?
Good.
Yeah, trying to stay warm out there a little bit. So
I don't mind the cold.
Yeah.
I hate the snow, but I don't mind the cold.
Mm-hmm.
I can put more clothes on.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate shoveling snow.
I'm the same way. I had to bust out snowboard for the first time, and I'll be glad if I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, I agree.
Which kind of relates, because, playoffs started last week for the NFL, and we had the cold game with Kansas City and Miami, and, Andy Reid's mustache freezing with snot and all that, or Buffalo where they had to shovel out. Like, I don't know if you saw some of the images where fans had to sit in snowbanks in the stadium and that.
Nope.
So we had somebody ask about cold weather games for you, and one of them I thought was kind of interesting too. Sleeves or no sleeves? Are you a sleeves or no sleeves guy when it gets to colder weather?
Offensive linemen don't wear sleeves.
No.
And I always wear a half shirt.
Yeah.
I don't remember, again, the memories fade. I don't remember a specific game that was super cold that I can recall, but it's a pride thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even the linemen on the sidelines weren't wearing long sleeve.
Yeah.
It was a toughness thing.
Yeah.
Was it smart? Probably not. But was it a toughness thing? Absolutely.
Yeah. Same for, would you say, receivers? I mean, sometimes I see some of those dudes, no shirt out there, and, but they're kind of a different breed, aren't they?
Receivers are wearing, snowmobile suits, basically, underneath their pads. They had the tights on and the long-sleeve shirts. We used to have these, bacalavas that would go over your head and hide under your helmet, and it was a full... a head sock almost with the face cut out of it. They were wearing that, but offensive linemen. And once you're playing, after the first three hits, the sting goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Even in that temperature, I was usually sweating, you know, because you're working, you know. So there was never a cold. Never really bothered me.
I think I heard Tom Brady one time say he wears a scuba suit when it was cold out
Wow.
there, and I'm like. For the temperature-wise or something like that, I'm like, oh, okay,
I would be concerned about mobility.
Yeah.
I don't want anything that I want to be as light and as fast as I possibly could be. I don't want anything restricting my movement on my legs, on my shoulders, on my arms. That is completely mortifying. I would never do that.
Right. And I got to imagine, maybe if I'm completely off, tell me, but if it's a cold weather game, you would think, okay, teams want to run the ball more, which offensive linemen, I think, would appreciate more, too, at that point.
Offensive linemen love running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say I hate pass blocking. It's a skill. It's an art form. Running the ball, you have less time for you to really screw up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing left tackle and a guy comes off and smokes your quarterback, everybody sees it.
Mm-hmm.
You can hide if you have a bad play, you can hide it amongst the running. But and then against running, it's all just kind of force on force and who wants it more. So that's why I like to run the ball.
Yeah. Would you say there's more when it gets to running the ball, as soon as that play is made, it's just kind of okay, natural instincts sort of thing, and just bulldozing over a guy or something like that?
You work on your technique. We did a lot of zone, so you knew where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of combo blocks on the down lineman, come off on the linebacker. You practice those every day. They become it's a habit. Your footwork. The guy next to you, his footwork, and just double team and just road grade people.
There's got to be a lot of trust involved in some of that when you see these guards pulling and just letting a free guy go.
Yeah.
With a quarterback or running back sitting there, to have that trust, that the timing of everything that's going to work out.
It is, and and that's worked out in. We started this in summer in camp. They're still doing the same stuff. It's unbelievable the amount of reps that you get. you get to know your teammates really well, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You don't have to communicate a whole lot because you both know what you're going to do.
Right.
It's very kind of a cool to be that close to somebody in those situations and not have to even communicate or talk. And
right.
You know what he's going to do, and you trust him enough where he's going to get, he's going to reach his block, and you're going to come off on a linebacker, and if all goes well, we'll break one. So.
Yeah. I know in that the Packer-Cowboy game, you had quite a few Badgers actually for the Cowboys and linemen there too, getting in some scrums over there too. They were getting a little chitty chatty.
Fired up.
Yeah,
playoffs.
Absolutely. So, and I know for Packers offensive linemen's sake, they had themselves a good game going up against Micah Parsons, who's a really great pass rusher. But from an offensive line standpoint, when you silence a defensive player like a Parsons, where everybody's like, "Oh, defensive player of the year," getting after the quarterback. When you don't hear that guy's name, though, that's got to be the best feeling in the world for an offensive lineman.
100%. And you don't need to be pounded on the back and say how great I am. Guys around you know it, and the other team knows it too because their superstar is silent.
Yep.
Hasn't been in, hasn't made any big plays, hasn't had an impact in the game, and there's definitely a respect there. It's a quiet demeanor, it's a quiet respect, but and then watching film is always fun on those days too.
Right.
After the game.
Would you say? Oh, not to cut you off or anything, but would you say to feed off that? Because once in a while, when you see these games and maybe it's lopsided, defensive lineman gets a little chippy, maybe a little aggressive, tries to get into it with an offensive lineman. Right. Is that almost your reward? Kind of sort of thing, because you don't get the public praise as an offensive lineman, right? But when you get that Aaron Donald or somebody who's just pissed off at you and they're trying to start a scrum or something like that, is that almost kind of like, all right, I know I did my job there at that point?
It's more of a, I know I'm getting to you.
Yeah.
I know I'm ruining your weekend. I know that I'm mentally in your head a little bit because whatever trick you've pulled out thus far in the game, we've either had an answer for it or I've held my own. So, which doesn't mean that the next play is not going to destroy you because that happens, very muchly so. But there's a lot of mental warfare going on in those trenches. Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, you don't gloat on the field. I wasn't a trash talker either. I couldn't breathe 90% of the time. Some people are very creative on defense with their insults, and I was just trying to breathe.
Yeah.
Just trying to live.
Oh, I probably can't say some of the stuff you probably heard on here. So
No, that would be, you would have some issues.
Another interesting question we had from a listener, I'm bringing it up here. This was from a gentleman named Ben. Ben's like, can you ask Joe the next time that he's on if when he was playing, was there any conversation about Barry Alvarez potentially taking another job or getting lured to the NFL? I thought at one time, I remember the Bears were interested in him. But obviously, with Harbaugh taking these interviews, what would the mindset be from a player on that Michigan team seeing your coach getting essentially kind of lured or trying to get lured to an NFL team? What do you think those players are thinking right now?
So the first question, I don't recall, and if it was happening, we weren't privy to that information. If Coach Alvarez was going to try to be lured to the NFL, he never addressed the team publicly about it that I can recall. So if it was happening, it was behind closed doors in meetings. And as far as a player, I mean, it's kind of hard because you committed to that coach. You committed to the program. You committed to your guys. It's a lot of that's going to go on. I think at the end of the day, you have to have the mindset that this is a business, and I say that a lot. College football is a business. So, again, as much as, especially after you win the national championship, you don't want your coach to leave. Ultimately, if it does happen, you kind of understand, and now, unfortunately or unfortunately, however you view it, with the transfer portal, you can just leave.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you are... Back in my time, you're at the mercy of it. You're at the mercy of if Coach Alvarez would leave, who they're going to bring in. You have to trust the university or the athletic director that they're going to find the best possible solution. But from where Coach Alvarez came from, inheriting just a horrible team in the late 80s and early 90s to where he built the program, I think he was all in, and obviously he never left, which is
right.
awesome for the program and for the university and for the state.
Right, and it's kind of got a trickle down effect too, because we just saw it with Alabama and Washington and all that. Nick Saban retires, so what do? They get Washington's coach who just made a national championship, but now going to Alabama. You got players that are all over the transfer portal, leaving Alabama. Well, now Washington needs a head coach, so they get somebody.
Right.
It's kind of a that's where it makes the Alvarez situation for your instance, knowing that guy was just going to be there.
Right.
That stability that it provides to that team.
Absolutely. Just no matter what. I mean, you look back at how long he was there for, and then took over the position of the athletic director. He's been a constant there since he arrived. And I'm happy that I never had to worry about that. And I'm happy that it was never on my radar. I'm also happy that I didn't play in the transfer portal area, because it's got to be tough, because you get close to the guys you play with.
Mm-hmm.
You understand it's a business. You want to do what's best for you want your friends to do what's best for them. But yeah, when you go close to people like that, and you're playing next to a guy for 3 years, or you're roommates with the guy, then all of a sudden, boom, he's gone. It's got to be a huge adjustment. Really happy I didn't play in that time.
And we're obviously focusing a lot on the head coach, but the position coaches then too would be affected by that, which I got to imagine you're really close to your position coaches at that time.
Absolutely. You see him. I saw him every day. There's always constant communication, whether it's watching film or on practice, or I saw him every day. So it's hard to readjust with a new coach, a new scheme, or whatever this new coach brings in, and whoever he takes with him, or whoever gets fired. Like, there's a lot of transition. Like, you really can't almost relax on what you've accomplished and what you've done, because it can change. Look at Joe Thomas, and I know this is the NFL. He played for the Browns, and how many new head coaches and new quarterbacks and new offensive schemes and new this and new that, and the guy was just...
You never heard him complain.
Never.
Yeah. And it sounds like he doesn't regret anything, not leaving or anything like that.
The guy's going to the Hall of Fame, or he's in the Hall of Fame, which is awesome. Yeah, the guy's just a specimen. So, the game itself is easy. It's the outside interference that you have to worry about.
Yeah, and I got to imagine, too, like social media, you're probably glad you didn't have to deal with that stuff and all that. So.
I'm so happy. I have kids that do it, but I'm happy that I wasn't in the social media era, just because, again, it's almost like another distraction. It really is. I had the luxury of just concentrating on going to school and playing football and doing what I needed to do to work out, and that was my life, and it was simplified for me, and I'm not saying it was simple, but it was simplified for me. I didn't have to think much about the outside stuff, because they've occupied my time all the time.
Yeah. We've talked about bulletin board material before. I want to read a quote. This is from a defensive lineman for the Packers talking about the 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. And I would like your reaction as an offensive lineman who's blocking for Brock Purdy when you hear something like this. So Devontae Wyatt said, "When D linemen just get pressure into him, he's always thrown off, or it's behind them, or it's overthrown or short. When you get pressure on him, it's a guarantee that we will get a turnover." So you are on the 49ers. You're an offensive lineman. You hear the counterpart saying that. Is that bulletin board material for you guys over there?
Absolutely, 100%. That's fuel on that fire. All of a sudden, you're going to get high load. The first play of the game.
Yeah.
Just to set the tone. Absolutely. Or you're going to find a way to set the tone there. Yeah, that's definitely bulletin board material. You're talking about the offensive line. You're calling out 5 guys. That's claiming, well, if we get pressure on them, your quarterback's going to basically crumble. So, yeah, that's bulletin board material. And it's very effective, too. You want to fire up an offensive line and build some more solidarity? Oh,
I got to imagine, because they're always the first ones to have that quarterback's back, too. I mean, we see it all the time.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, if it's a late hit or close to a late hit or something like that.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, I don't know why we're doing this, but then you had there was Mark Chmura saying, in this game, it might be worth it, a 15-yard penalty, to give a little extra hit to Purdy and send him back. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing right now with this?
I don't believe in being dirty. Okay, so when I said high-low, like, you have ways to set the tone in the offensive line, whether it be a double team or something else. I'm not talking about taking guys' knees out or cheap shotting, because that's not what we condone at Scherz. Is what we learned at Wisconsin. But there's ways in the trenches for you to make your point known and to get into a guy, or if you're doing a pass protection, you step back one or two and then you go for his knees, which is completely legal.
Right.
However, so there's ways for you to set that standard and for you to, okay, I read what you wrote, I heard what you said, and now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. Let's go.
And this is a second-year defensive lineman saying that too, and I'm just like, oh, dude, why?
I don't think you know everything yet. You still have a lot of growing to do.
Yeah. And if you want to get down to the numbers, he actually was the quarterback. Purdy was actually the best under the pressure, according to the numbers too. So it's that's even dumber.
Yeah, it's just
to make stuff like that.
Never try to make a bulletin board material for somebody else, because first of all, I don't want to get called into the coach's office. This is what the focus is on, for your interviews, for the media. This is what we're talking about. It's always about the team. It's always about coming together. It's always about the team. I would never.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't call people out.
I would appreciate it, if he's trying to say, we got to do our job and try to generate pressure on him. That's completely different than saying, he sucks when we get pressure on
absolutely.
him.
But again, and you're calling out 5 offensive linemen, that aren't doing their job, and that's 1,000% bulletin board material, and good luck.
Yep. When it came to, I don't know why I just thought of this, but because obviously you had a Heisman candidate or a Heisman teammate with Ron Dane, power runner over there. We see the NFL's got a mixture of power runners, speed runners. As an offensive lineman, was it different to adjust between the styles of runners, or was it the same for a lot of those guys?
Different. Ron was super patient.
Okay.
Ron trusted us enough, and we trusted him enough that give us time. The plays take time to develop. If you're coming off a double team onto a linebacker, the play itself takes time to develop. It doesn't pay for you to be running in the hole when I'm still coming off on a one block to get to another block. So Ron was super patient. Now you had some some running backs that were, and I think Michael Bennett was.
That was the first name I thought of.
Yeah.
Yep. Because he was in track too. Speedster.
Super fast.
Yep.
And a funny story. It was. I think we were in the shower, and everybody had a face mask mark on their back, lower back, shoulders, where there's no padding, and all offensive line. So we actually called. I think my buddy called Michael in and said, "Hey, I want you to come in here. Look at this. You see the face mask mark on all of the offensive linemen up here? You need to be more patient. I promise you we'll make the blocks.
Yeah.
But you got to give us time for the play to develop." And it actually did work. He slowed down and obviously was a good back for us. But it was speedsters are hard because they're fast and they want to get the ball and they want to do their thing. Ron was a power back and patient, just patient. If you ever watch some of the film on Ron, just patient, waiting. There's a whole boom and explode. So yeah.
And that's got to be something you got to learn too, right? With all that time spent, whether it's at the seminary or anything like that, because he's got to be thinking too, okay, I'm target number 1 right now. Everybody's coming after me to be that patient and trust you guys.
Very hard to be patient when you're the guy with the ball and everyone's hunting you. So I completely agree with that. But you also have some guys up front that have some experience and have some weight and have some, you got to be able to trust your guys. That's where that's built. And 100%. So, yeah, I would rather block for a guy who's patient than have a guy running up the back of my legs and bulldozing me in the back.
Yeah.
So it just takes time.
Do you think that's a lot of the issues with maybe teams that struggle to run the ball because their running back is maybe not as patient in that part?
Could be that. Also, I think offensive line is – it's the only way you get better is through just the trials and tribulations. You learn you learn the how you can exist, how to play. Not from watch. Film is a part of it, but sometimes just getting your butt kicked.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and especially you're 3 years together that you play across the front, and then you start seeing the people gel. But it does take time, so it's a mixture. It takes 11 guys to move the ball. It takes 11 guys to stop the ball. That's where the whole team thing comes together. So yeah, hard to say what part it is, but patience is a virtue, and it's sometimes hard for running back, which I completely understand.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I like that Michael Bennett story.
Huh?
That's a really good one.
Huh?
That's a good one. All right, before I let you go here, obviously the temperatures are colder, which is like even better for warmer drinks and such too. I've been chowing down. I shouldn't say chowing down. That doesn't sound right. Chugging down on the coffee. So we got more of the Giddy Up, which is my favorites over there, plus the smell too.
Absolutely.
So when you leave, I'm probably going to take a big sniff in the bag there. But you're freshly roasted. You even put the date on there too.
Coffee is freshest 14 days after it's roasted. Be careful for people who claim fresh ground coffee. Well, if your coffee's 6 years old, I can still fresh grind it for you. Like, it doesn't matter. So yeah,
play on words there.
We put a date on there, so you know it. It's the freshest in 14 days. And then it starts to lose some of its essential oils and flavors, and it starts to get stale, almost like fresh bread. If you've all had fresh bread out of the oven, coffee's very similar. We use our coffee, we roast it on site, buy our beans green from all over the world, and serve it at Cabin Coffee.
And you got a bunch of different flavors on there too, and the Giddy Up is light, correct?
It's light roast. It's got more caffeine, so people who say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I need a nice dark roast." I'd probably go with the light roast if you're really tired. It's got more caffeine in it. So there's my little...
Do you think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there with
It is.
that? Yeah.
From what I hear from customers. And we try to... If you have a question about coffee, we have the answer.
Right.
So...
he's not just a pretty face.
Yeah, I mean, I have a face for radio. So, so our employees know. They have not coffee knowledge, and... If you have questions about coffee, we can have the answer. Otherwise, they call me. I seem to know a thing or two about coffee. So, so it's great. It's fresh is the best. If you've had fresh coffee, you will not go back to the brown flavored water. I promise you. And I was just at a wedding this past weekend, and there was coffee, and I did not drink it because the benefits of it were. I did the pros and cons, and I wasn't going to do it.
You assessed it right there?
I will go without coffee before I have crappy coffee. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There is definitely a difference. So, all right, dude. Well, appreciate the time as always. I always love our conversations.
Absolutely.
There. Never know where it kind of turns after that.
I look forward to these conversations every week because I get a chance to talk about football. And like I said, I get to relive my glory years from 20 years ago. So
well, we get to learn a lot of stuff there too. So I appreciate that too. So and I can't wait when you and Bill get your podcast coming.
Yep, that's
coming down the line too.
Coming down the line here, we're working on it still, and again, I think it's kind of going to be a fun thing. I've been hitting the head a lot, so sometimes the stories start to fade, and this is just one way for us to, to have it through on the internet, and maybe someday if I have grandkids. Or my kids will be able to sit back and listen and be able to hear some of the stories before I completely forget all of them. So, and it's one thing that I wish I would have did, and I wish I would have kept a journal because I was told to. Like, you're gonna forget this, and I'm like, how am I gonna forget it? I lived it. I lived it, And now I'm 46, and it takes a couple of us to get together to remember stories, and you forget things, and so I think it's going to be kind of a cool experience for us.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of which, you've been able to spend some time with your daughter with holiday break too?
She's been off, so she just turned 19 on the 16th. So she 19 and spent time with her, and she's doing great. Obviously, love seeing my kids. My son's been was off this week too, so it's been pretty good.
Awesome. First semester in.
And she appears to be doing good, has it figured out, and good for her.
Awesome. Good deal. All right, we'll send our best to your family, too, and we'll catch up with you again next week, buddy.
Sounds good.
That's going to do it on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you could, be a friend, give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.